Good evening, Willowdale, North York, and beyond, and welcome to a very special Elections 2021 edition of Meet Your Neighbor. For those of you who are joining us for the very first time, this is NeighbourLink North York's weekly Willowdale interview series. Each week, we introduce you to a new neighbor in the spirit of building a more connected community. Tonight, we are joined by Willowdalers who are on the ballot campaigning to represent our riding as MP. Now, this is not a debate. We're calling it a candidate roundtable discussion. This evening's conversation is an opportunity to get to know the candidates in Willowdale on a more personal level as neighbors. All candidates were invited to attend tonight's event, and we're excited to be joined by lawyer, civil servant, and incumbent MP and Liberal candidate Ali Ehsassi, palliative care doctor and NDP candidate Hal Berman, and architect and lead AP and Green Party candidate Anna Gorka. Al Wahab, the PPC candidate, was not able to attend live, but has sent us a video introduction. Now, before we introduce you to our guests, allow me to introduce you to our host and our moderator, Lily Chang.
Hello, welcome to our special edition of Meet Your Neighbors. And although my title is moderator, I'm actually not really moderating because this is not a debate. It's a chance to get to know our neighbors, special neighbors whose names will be on the ballot. Hopefully, you've gone to advanced polling, which ended 7 minutes ago. But if not, you can vote next Monday. And so this is a chance to hear who these candidates are as our neighbors. So let's give them all a warm welcome. Yay, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, Anna, hi, Hal, and hi, Ali.
Hi, Lily.
Thank you so much for making time to be with us tonight. I know that you guys must be incredibly exhausted. This is the final sprint, and it's been a very intense, few weeks for you. So maybe you could start off by introducing yourself as well as your connection to Willowdale. Let's start with Ali.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you, Lily, for hosting tonight's event. And thank you to NeighbourLink for making it all possible. My name is Ali Ehsassi. I've had the great privilege of serving as the MP here for the past 6 years. I live in West Lansing, and it's been incredible to meet so many incredible neighbors over the course of the past several weeks. But I'm sure there are many more people I will be meeting in the final stretch of this campaign.
Greetings, I'm Anna Gorka. I'm the Green Party candidate this year, and I'm a Willowdaler as well. I live near Earl Haig High School, and I spent part of my week and my other home near the High Park Little League, because that's where my son plays. And I've lived in Willowdale since 1998. I'm really excited to think about politics and the community and get into this discussion. Thank you for hosting.
Thank you, Anna.
And I'm Hal Berman. I'm your Willowdale NDP candidate. I moved here from Montreal in 1981, and after I finished my undergrad degree, I moved away to go to university, sort of coming back home in the summers. But once I graduated from medical school, I lived in downtown Toronto for a little while, and when I got married, we moved up to York Centre, which is just west of Willowdale. But my kids started going to school in Willowdale from senior kindergarten on. And when my mother decided to move out of our old house, we moved back in. So I'm back here in Willowdale for the last 4 years. And my daughter is now starting Earl Haig, which is where I graduated from.
Welcome. It is so nice to hear, you all kind of talk about your bearings here in our community. And, I think you've probably been knocking on some doors in the last few weeks. Maybe you could share a story about someone you've met along the way, someone whose story has kind of captured your interest.
Oh, well, I could start. I'll just bring this. This is my campaign talisman. It is a keychain, and it was crafted by Wayne at no fixed address, who lives near Willowdale, Shepherd and Young. And he had so many stories about how the wildlife crept in and during COVID. And this keychain, it doesn't have a key. So I just feel like, election or no, I'm determined to find him a home before it gets cold.
Thank you. That is very.
Oh, and he's just such an entrepreneurial guy. You should get these. They're very beautiful, and he has bracelets.
Oh, we'll have to all go to Young and Shepherd, maybe build him a website and help him to scale up his business.
Yeah, he needs a bump.
So one of the biggest challenges is getting the actual signatures to get on the ballot. I'm sure Ali and Anna, you have the same problem. A couple of the people that I met that really are memorable is one of the first people who signed my nomination paper when we went to the door, and I had my daughter with me because people are more polite when you have a child with you. And the woman who answered the door said that she was a Green Party supporter, but she signed it anyway because she wanted to help me out. And then later on, I got a signature from a friend of mine who's actually a member of the Liberal Party, and he also signed yours, Ali. So don't feel bad. And other people who signed it, not necessarily because they're going to support me, although there are a lot of people that said they would, but they believed in the democratic process. And I was really impressed that they didn't care what party I was running for. And I think, Anna, I reached out to your party as well to say, listen, if you need help with signatures, I'm happy to sign, because I think getting on the ballot is probably the toughest part, and then the rest is a conversation.
That's good.
Cal, great to hear so many people crossed lines to offer support to a fellow Willowdaler who was courageous enough to put his name out there. And Ali?
Lily, my apologies, because I understand the first question had to do with our connection to Willowdale. So I should say that when we first moved to Canada, and I was 16 years old, we moved to North York, not exactly in Willowdale proper, but just outside Willowdale. So lived in North York, and then moved around in the city quite a bit. I'm a product of two universities here in Toronto, the University of Toronto downtown and Osgoode Hall Law School uptown. But I should say I've darted around all over the city, having lived in various parts of Toronto. I've lived in Willowdale over the course of the past 7 years. Believe it or not, that is the longest I have lived anywhere in the past 30 years. So it's great to live here. In terms of interesting encounters at the door, there are many, many interesting encounters, but I guess one that really hit a nerve was someone who was in his early teens, and when I knocked on the door, he walked out with a picture we had taken 6 years ago. So that was very, very special.
That's great to hear. And even tonight, I went to the advanced poll at Edithdale, and just seeing there was actually some lining up happening, and just knowing that my fellow Willowdalers, that we're all kind of engaged in this process, I think it does mean something. To your point, Hal, of just everyone wanting to support you to be part of the democratic process. So, one thing that, we don't have to debate on is good food here in Willowdale. So I thought, we could kind of start off by talking about what is your favorite restaurant here in our community? Let's start with Hal.
So I couldn't pin it down to one. Obviously, I love Korean food, and so the Owl of Minerva is a place that we go very often, and my wife especially loves the pork bone soup there. And so that's one place that we go very often. But we try to go to as many different restaurants as possible. There's another restaurant, and I don't know the name. It's not really a restaurant because it's a counter in a Persian supermarket, and they have all this types of Persian food. And it's at Willowdale and Shepherd. It's in that little plaza. And I don't know the name of it, but they have amazing food. That's for sure.
Yes, I've been to that supermarket. It is really good.
Then I tried the kubide.
Mm-hmm. And Ali.
So that restaurant that you're referring to, a very nice owner there, is Ali Ehsassi. But I would say the best thing about Willowdale, which is pretty much what Hal was emphasizing, is the variety that we get. And it really depends. I am known to be someone who eats a lot. So it depends on my mood. And there's so many different options in our great riding, which is always great to see.
So is there a restaurant that we're more apt to find you frequenting?
No, I really do get around as much
Spread
as
it around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice, nice. And Anna?
You know what? As coming from a bicultural family, and when you're together, my mother's always cooking, and we don't go out so much. But down the street, we can walk to Paisanos, and I feel like they had that outdoor atmosphere down pat before even COVID is helping us realize that urban vitality can be so bolstered by eating outside and taking over the streets. So I'm going to suggest that one.
And they have a killer gnocchi.
That's right. Love that. And it's so cross-cultural too, right? Yeah.
And Alexei Adamski is commenting, we need more indie coffee shops here. And I completely agree. I do wish there were some indie coffee shops. There is one. I think the land. I forgot the name of it now. I'll look it up and I will share it later.
There is one shop. There is one actually on Finch Avenue between Senlac and Bathurst. I don't know if it's still open.
Oh, yeah.
It's called Senaphora.
Yeah.
And when I went before COVID, I used to take my residents there, get in the morning, get them a cup of coffee, go over some charts, do some teaching while we're having coffee, because they had really good coffee and some good food as well. And we used to spend some time there before going to see patients.
That's good.
Yeah, that I've actually hung out there for a few meetings, so it is a nice meeting place, and we could use a few more of those scattered throughout Willowdale. Another Land coffee, that's right. Another Land coffee. I have heard rave reviews about Another Land coffee. Have you guys tried it? No. Okay.
Not yet. Will do.
Yes, I've heard amazing things. So the other part, like people pitch Willowdale as a place where you can live, work, and play. What are activities that you guys like to do when you're not canvassing or, working the jobs that you have? Let's start with Ali.
So other activities, again, I would say it's seasonal. Over the summer is the only time I get around to playing tennis, and we have a tennis club very close by. So certainly make the most of that. But I would have to say also one of the things that makes the riding very, very special are the ravines. It is incredible how many incredible ravines we have all throughout the riding. And as someone who has a dog, I certainly make the most of those beautiful ravines all throughout the ride.
And did you buy your dog before or during the pandemic?
Before.
So you're an early adopter.
Yes, that's right.
How about you, Anna?
Oh, I love the ravines too. I used to take my dearly departed dog there. But one thing that's so incredible about Willowdale is that we have a ski hill. And you can take a bus to it. So I got my CSIA level 2 instructor certification, which is international, but you didn't really have to be international, even though we have such a beeline to the airport, don't we? And just get to the hill, park, or get off the bus and go down. So that's just so unique to me. I think I learned there when I was 3 years old, and then I ended up teaching when I was 18 and onwards while I was studying at U of T. So
yeah, I read in your bio that you would take your ski gear on the bus, and everyone would be looking at you, wondering, where's this girl going with these skis? And right down the street, right to Earldale. So we are very lucky to have hills that we hope will open after COVID. And how about you, Hal?
So Earldale is actually a favorite place. In fact, in the last 2 elections, I've taken fall photos at Earldale's because everything turns orange, so it makes sense, right? And so I do like going there. Unfortunately, my dog isn't much for walking long distances. So if I take her for a walk, it's usually around the block, but my kids like to go there. And one of the things that we've done during the pandemic is try to get to parks so that they can, play with their friends or their cousins and spend some time outside. And going around seeing patients all the time, I see patients in their homes, I get to know where the good parks are because I see them as I drive by, and then we can go to some of the parks.
So, the three of you are running at a federal level, which can sometimes feel like the issues are not that tactile for a lot of people who are living here, the day-to-day in Willowdale. I thought it'd be interesting, and actually Aiden is asking this, but from the perspective of, looking at your neighbors, looking at your neighborhood, what is it that has compelled you to put your name on the ballot, to want to contribute in this way to our community? And we'll start with Anna.
Oh, well, that's a large question. I feel, what about our neighborhood has compelled us to run?
Yeah, like what or your neighbors, maybe not the neighborhood, it could be your neighbors, the conversations you've had, or things that you've encountered. What has inspired you or given you the courage to get to this moment?
Well, I'm a great believer in urban intensity and natural habitat as a part of the human habitat. So when I walk in Willowdale, I'm able to see a detail that I helped pioneer in a skyscraper 20 years ago. Oh no, 18 years ago. And it's where the floor plate gets larger in that condo Empress or Emerald. The name's escaping, Emerald Park. Yeah, so it started at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, and when you do that, you just maximize real estate, and I think density is so awesome. And then you tighten the urban form, and you have these two ravines and parks. So what I see is a little bit of sprawl still happening in the urban condition, and I just want to contribute to the betterment. We're at this point where our community could really re-gel after the first thrust of development happened, and I just felt like I have a lot to say there. So it has to do with traffic and revitalization, but I'm getting into my platform. And
well, it's good to hear that you have such a passion for, how our community is laid out. I think, there's mixed feelings about density, but we also recognize in terms of resource distribution, it has its importance and benefits. And I'm sure everyone agrees that the ravines are critical for the mental health and well-being of the community. Hal, perhaps you could speak to, your inspiration.
So I've been like Ali. This is not my first trip around the block, and I've been interested in politics my whole time. I took it in university as well, and I have a neighbor who encourages me to do this and do this more and more when we have our dogs out, during in the evenings and stuff. But if you want to look at what influences me and what influences what I want to do, without trying to get into my platform, it's that when I see patients, and this could have been anywhere, but I happen to see them in Willowdale, so that counts as my neighbors. I see some of the challenges that they face, and Ali wouldn't know this because he can't tell me who he sees, and I can't tell him who I see. But there are times when I'll send people, if they have an immigration issue, they want to get somebody to come visit them to help take care of them, I'll tell them to call his office, right? Because that's what MPs do. And I had a really good mentor in that with one of Ali's associates, Michael Levitt, who I ran against in 2015, and we became friends. And he told me about some of the stuff that he does for people in the community. And I said, that's really cool stuff, right? Because it doesn't matter what level of politics you're doing, there are things that you have to do to help. And that's sort of what inspired me to do that. I don't want to put words in Ali's mouth, but I suspect that he'd probably say something similar.
Well, Hal, you were also organizing political discussions at Earl Hague. Is that true?
No. Oh well, when I was a high school student, I used to organize all candidates meetings. So I'm really excited that this coming all candidates meeting will be the other way around. Somebody's organizing it for me. But yes, I've always been interested in politics.
And so possibly some of the seeds of where you're at now were planted in our very own Earl Haig. So that's really cool.
But to be clear, it was a different Earl Haig, right? The only part of that school that remains is Cringan Hall, which is built into the new school, right? They rebuilt the school entirely.
Oh, you mean the building? For a second, I was like, oh no, did I miss something in your bio? Right, no. Right. Yes, it's been completely remodeled. And Ali, I would love to hear your answer to what has inspired you.
Well, much like how I would say it's been a long-standing interest to always be engaged, to know what's going on in my surroundings, and to help out as best as I possibly can. Because of that, I think most people would say much more impressive than my academic career at university was my extracurricular career, because I would always get involved in things, and I really do get a rush out of seeing people come together in pursuit of great endeavors. So I've always been interested in politics. But to Hal's point, we are so fortunate to live in a riding that has so many incredible individuals and impressive ones with that. So just getting to know as many people as you possibly can in our riding is inspiring in and of itself. And as Hal knows, I really try to get out there as much as possible, canvass, engage with neighbors. And that's how I met Hal at his house. I believe it was during the 2019 election. So it's the rush of being involved and not feeling like you have the option of sitting on the sidelines or being indifferent, but rolling up your sleeves and trying out as helping out as best you possibly can.
So I'm going to ask some specific questions from each of you that relate to, your corner of Willowdale. And I'll start with Anna. In your bio, you mentioned, like you raised your children through attending a lot of learning centers across Willowdale. Do you have a fond memory of a certain location or a certain teacher that was at one of them that impacted your kids?
Well, all I kind of remember is zoom, 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 we're going to the moon and that sort of thing. But I remember Cindy at Newtonbrook, and she would actually tour the whole OEYC circuit. And it's interesting where there are deserts for those centers in Toronto, but Willowdale is pretty strong. And getting to those places is always so easy, winding roads with buses or bikes. And I like getting around with children slowly and really letting the neighborhood soak in and have encounters along the way. If you're on a bus, you can read a book and talk to strangers. So I've lost track of your question, though. It's
so which of the early subjects? I mean, you've spoken about Newtonbrook. Yeah,
and Hilda. Those were good ones.
And what is the favorite park that you brought your kids to?
Oh, well, we liked the water park. I don't even know its name. It's beside Empress Walk, and the one with the
Willowdale Park.
Yeah, Willowdale Park.
Yes,
I mean, it has all the elements, right? We just need to resurface that creek, air the creek out, like was going to be the project.
Right, and I think they are going to redesign that park, so there may be a new park to come. I know there were some consultations recently.
Yeah, I mean, naturalization has got to happen fast and that's part of why I'm running too, is that having this natural infrastructure mitigates all the climate events that we're having and the hazardous weather events, extreme weather. If you have a sponge in the form of a park with deeper root systems rather than just lawn and a creek that's doing its part, cooling the air, and lots of trees. I mean, these are formulas that we can enact, and I'd love to really get into it, you guys. That's been really, the Liberals did so much on that front, but yeah.
I like how you're acknowledging each other in positive ways. This is
Oh,
really
I gotta say, I was listening to I Am a Walrus before we got here. I just want to quote it. It was, I just needed to listen to some music because I was nervous. And it says, those first lines are, I am he, as you are me, and we are all together. You know, as long as we keep solving problems together, it's just would be ideal, right?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And actually, recently, NeighbourLink North York and some concerned citizens got together and did some park cleanup. And a really strong team removed a couch from the ravine by Willowdale Park. There was a sofa chair there that had been there for ages. And yeah, kudos to the team of volunteers that somehow was able to remove that sofa, which I'm sure had become infested with stuff over the time that it's been there. So, Hal, I wanted to ask you, since you attended Earl Haig, or a former iteration of it, would you like to share a fond memory of going to school there?
There are so many. I think that was the apex of my educational time was going to Earl Haig. I was in the orchestras. I was in the debating society. I was there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't leave until 4:30 almost every day. But two of the highlights I'd like to sort of mention. One is we had a school show every year, and the year I graduated was actually I think the 60th anniversary, so we did a sort of a variety thing, and I helped to organize that and organize a choir version of a song that was created by people at the school, which was really fun. But the year before we did West Side Story, and I can never listen to the songs from West Side Story without feeling it right here because I was there. I played those high notes on the violin when Maria met Tony, and it was just awesome. I was about to say awful. It wasn't awful. It was awesome. But the other thing is that the librarian at the hospital, Peter Kelly was his name. He was one of my political mentors as well. I'm not going to go into his politics, but he was. And we kept in touch after high school. And in fact, and he was British too, so he had this accent from Yorkshire. And we actually, my wife and I asked him to officiate at our wedding because we had kept in touch the whole time. He even looked into seeing if it would be possible to get a license to perform marriages. That wasn't possible in the time frame, so we did, sign our papers separately. But he was there under the chuppah with us, and he performed our wedding. And he unfortunately passed away a few years ago suddenly. But I have very fond memories of him and of all of the mentoring and things that he taught me.
Wow, that's really, really touching to hear of such a deep relationship with someone from the school who, shared an important part of your journey, not only feeding you with the, interest in politics, but also officiating your wedding. That's really beautiful. And Ali, you live in West Lansing, which I think, the rest of Willowdale can actually learn a lot from in terms of community connectivity. What do you think sets West Lansing apart from the rest of Willowdale?
Well, what I can do is I can compare and contrast it with where we lived before West Lansing, which was downtown. And I can honestly tell you, like, none of the neighbors were chatty. No one knew much about each other. And as soon as we moved into West Lansing, people were truly engaged, would get together, chit chat. And I agree, it's a great neighborhood. A lot of the children go to school together, but people really understand that we're part of a community and we have to look out for each other, and we face common challenges. So it's a great pocket in the riding. But let me use that to say the greatest thing about public life actually has been that it provides you with a license to get out there and get a sense as to what it is that brings people in our riding or in our community together. And you come to appreciate what it is, what organizations are there to fill those gaps and make sure that we all feel like we belong, and that we can lean in on each other and be there for each other.
Thank you. Yes, that is our hope as NeighbourLink North York, that we would be one of those pieces that fills in the gap and just, I guess, like a glue in our community to bring people together.
Absolutely.
So my next question is a little more serious in terms of just, if we think back to April 23rd, 2018, you will all remember we went through a tragedy together on Yonge Street. And for many people, it was a defining moment of their experience of our neighborhood in terms of how we reacted to it and how we walked through the aftermath. And so I thought it'd be nice to hear from fellow neighbors of, how that moment impacted you and how, you carried that in terms of how you see our community now. And we'll start with Hal.
So I remember that day very well. I was supposed to meet a nurse practitioner for lunch, and we were going to go to the tofu soup place, the Korean tofu soup place that's just south of Finch. And we were then going to see a patient together afterwards. And our schedule changed, so we went to see the patient a little bit earlier, and we didn't go for lunch. We would have left lunch around the time that the attack occurred. And when I was actually driving to see another patient, and I saw all of these police cars and ambulances driving in the other direction, and I was wondering what was going on. I didn't know if they were going to the hospital or if they were going to something. And it was only when I was in the home of my next patient that they had the news on, and this was breaking news, and we were all in shock. And then imagine, going home after that and explaining to my children, who were very young at the time, they were in elementary school, what had happened and what it was all about, and then visiting the memorial at the Olive Parquet. And it was, to me, that was one of the most memorable things that had ever occurred while I lived in Willowdale. And it's something that I commemorate every year, and I think about through different parts of the year. And what impressed me a lot was how the community came together after that as well, and how we grieved together. Grief is part of what I do, I work with. And to see that community grief and support was very touching and moving, and I still keep it with me today.
Thank you, Hal. Hannah?
At the time, I was trying to live in Willowdale, but the housing market was out of my reach, and we had just returned from a farming expedition and some ecological restoration abroad. So I settled in Arif Virani's neighborhood, and he was having these discussions about online hate at town hall, and it was very soothing to be able to talk about the runaway effects of, well, not soothing, but timely and helpful to discuss what happens to people when they're just too engrossed in the virtual worlds. So I decided to scale back my own tendency to just plug into social media as a tired person in those days, because my children were young. And of course, during the rampage, I was so nervous about my parents and friends and calling everybody. I think that there's still healing left to do, like Hal is saying, and we ought to really try to make greater strides with changing these high-speed corridors into more livable cityscapes as a part of the solution in combination with online hatred mitigation.
Thank you, Anna. And Ali, I know you played a role as a leader in the community through that incident, and I'm sure it has impacted you greatly. Maybe you could share a little bit from your perspective as a Willowdaler.
As you probably know, when I first heard about this, it was during question period in Parliament. And obviously, as soon as question period was over, I just wanted to make it back home as soon as possible. Because all the footage that was coming in, it was literally a 3-minute walk from where I live and probably a 4-minute walk from the constituency office. But remember making it to the airport and on the way over, just trying to frantically call as many people as I possibly could. But I think having arrived here, and I remember I've never seen this before, but as you will recall, Yonge Street was shut down. So it was very, very eerie. But truthfully, everyone was a leader during that very, very difficult period. And it was the outpouring of love and care that everyone demonstrated to each other, which was incredibly, incredibly powerful and touching, and really makes us all recognize how incredibly fortunate we are to live in a community such as ours, where everyone cares, everyone um, is there for each other, and appreciates full well how important it is to be engaged. But of course, there were other issues that after that we have to take very, very seriously, and online hate is certainly at the very top of that list. And it's an issue that we should remain focused on, address, and make sure that we don't have similar incidents going forward.
Thank you, Ali.
Yeah, without getting partisan or anything, and I want you to know, Ali, that I get transcripts of whatever you say in the House of Commons. It's one of those things. Ali has always spoken out against hatred, regardless of what it's directed against, and I always appreciate that about you, Ali.
Thank you.
Can I say this is probably the best multi-candidate, multi-party discussion I've ever seen. Just how positive you have been towards each other. It really is amazing. And I'd like to think it's actually an expression of Willowdale, that Willowdale has a part where we can acknowledge each other's differences while also being positive around each other. And, voting is very important towards shaping the future of our country. But so too is the engagement of our community. And so what do you think, what do Willowdalers need to do to make Willowdale a better place? Based on what you see and the issues you hear about, not what you need to do or your party, but what do we as Willowdalers, what do we need to do to make our community a better place? And we can start with Ali.
Start with.
Ali, what do you think we need to do as Willowdalers? So often when you're campaigning, it's about what you are going to do, the promises. But what do you think we as Willowdalers, as citizens, what do we need to do to make Willowdale a better place?
Well, first of all, let me comment on what a pleasure it's been to be online with Hal and Anna. I think the important thing to recognize is that we're all in this because we want to be part of something much bigger than ourselves, and we all certainly care about our community. But I think generally speaking, the most important thing to bear in mind as we think about the future of Willowdale and of our city and of our province is to think long term about what we should be on guard for, to make sure that prosperity is there, and that we continue to have a riding which is a great riding for families to raise kids in. So I think we have to always have a very family-centric approach to things, in the sense that we have to make sure that Willowdale remains affordable, that Willowdale has the necessary transit for all of us lead very, very busy lives. So it's important to look into that. And also to go back to what Hal was talking about, to make sure that it has the best schools. We're truly blessed to have so many incredible schools here and so many incredibly impressive students. So it's about various elements, and it's about thinking long term about how to preserve all those things that we cherish.
So just to almost like flip a reverse canvassing, if you were knocking on the door and instead of telling people like what you're going to do, what would you ask them to do to contribute other than voting for you?
That's what I was going to say. Elect me. That's what Willowdale can do. But I'm sure Anna would probably feel the same way, and Ali would like to be reelected. I think we need to remember that we are a community. And sometimes, especially in the winter when it's really cold and there's like 10 meters of snow all around, we sometimes feel a bit isolated. And there are a lot of people out there. I mean, I live in a house. There are a lot of people who don't have the same kind of housing that we do. The people who live in sort of, that they just don't have they don't know where their next rent check's going to come. There's people who don't have what we have, and I think we have to watch out for those people. And I think we need to make ourselves more aware of the people around us and what their challenges might be, and try to be there for them when they need us.
Thanks, Hal. That's actually part of what NeighbourLink North York aspires to be and to do, is to be that bridge to those who are living in poverty or social isolation, and building a strong social infrastructure, building a village out of the city that we live in. So you spoke to my heart, Hal. Anna, how about you? What would you say if you were reverse canvassing? What would you ask of Willowdalers to make our community a better place?
Well, certainly there is housing distress at the various levels, ranging from no fixed address to just inadequacy spatially and air quality and health. So to pay attention to each other and keep institutions accountable, because I'm aware that when we had the COVID crisis, Rent Safe TO was not doing in-suite inspections for people who were suffering for some reason or another, no clean ducts from corporate landlords, whereas real estate agents were allowed to go into homes and do their work. So these inequities are very fundamental to what our community responsibility should be all about. Watch out for each other and make sure that there isn't a fairness gap like that. So I'm in total agreement with you guys. And I just wanted to suggest that I think Willowdale would be a better place if we had more music and opportunities for young people, because we have these big box facilities, but where are all the holes in the wall and places for young people to be so that they can stay connected to our urban fabric? I remember growing up just putting my earphones on and going downtown or to the Sonic Temple, and of course Q107 headquarters was right there. But it would be great to have some vitality for youth.
Mm-hmm. Someone actually suggested to us to have a silent disco. Have you heard of a silent disco? So
I can imagine it, though.
Puts on their AirPods or earpods. We all tune into the same music, and we all dance in silence.
All those formats are excellent. Yeah.
I've seen that in a Korean drama, but I haven't actually experienced it in person.
You
Let's
watch
do it.
Korean dramas?
The medical dramas, like Medical Top Team and Hospital Playlist, are very accurate when it comes to the medicine, and some of the plots are quite good.
That's amazing. You can watch them with my husband. He's also a Korean drama fan, so that's great to know. That's very interesting. Okay, so we're almost wrapping up. Before we go, I thought it'd be great to just hear your. Sorry, I wanted to go back to say, like, did you know that there is a group on Facebook that is made up of fans of Willowdale? It's called Willowdale in the 70s. And I think there's 17,000 people in that group, and they're so passionate to reminisce about every crevice of Willowdale that there is. And so my question to you, and actually the group's moderator, who's kind of a small celebrity, actually a large celebrity for Willowdale, he's actually watching right now, Howie Kluger. Hi, Howie. But I wanted to ask you, what about Willowdale makes it so special that there is a fan club for our community? And I'll start with Hal.
So I wasn't aware of the fan club. I mean, Willowdale has changed a lot since I came here in 1981. I mean, the buildings. I mean, the first election campaign that I volunteered in was at Northtown Plaza, and all three of the major parties had their campaign offices there. I saw Brian Mulrooney. I got Jean Chrétien's autograph, and nobody from the NDP came that time. But I got to meet John Fagan, another political mentor. So things have really changed a lot. That plaza's not there anymore. But I remember there's a cemetery that was on both sides of Senlac, and at the time when I was growing up, it was really only in use on the east side between Beecroft and Senlac. So the other side was just a field, and for a 13, 14-year-old, it was a perfect place to launch model rockets. And we used to go there and we used to build model rockets, and we used to launch them, and that's one of that would be one of my nostalgia memories for Willowdale. But that was in the 80s, not the 70s, because I only moved here in 81.
Well, I think there's fans across the decades in that group. So how about you, Ali? What makes Willowdale special to you, or why do you think it's worth it having a fan club for Willowdale?
Well, I would say it's the diversity and the dynamism of our riding. It's the fact that there's a lot of hustle and bustle and amazing businesses and restaurants, but also by the same token, having the ability to go to green spaces and go to ravines. I mean, that really is incredible when you think that we have so many options in a relatively small area. But the one thing I really look forward to, because I've always considered Mel Laskin Square to be the heart and soul of our riding. And it was always so nice to see different events going on and neighbors coming, celebrating, having a good time. And I certainly hope that very soon we will get there again. One of my favorite events, I would say, was there was a big band that was playing at Mel Laskin Square, and some of the elderly constituents were dancing at Mel Laskin Square. So I certainly hope we'll have a whole lot more of that and a whole lot more activity as we move forward.
We did have Vax the North. That was fun.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. And the mayor came up for that. Yeah.
I too love the Sunday serenades. My kids were dancing beside the seniors, and yeah, I can't wait for those to start up again. And Anna, how about you? What makes Willowdale special to you, or why do you think Willowdale has a fan club?
Well, I'm so excited to check out that page. I'll definitely do so because it might help me in my explorations um, where I find Willowdale so special because you can still perceive the farm roots. Sometimes the lay of the land shows how berms that maybe went to a barn or a windbreak planted, and we're at this point where we could preserve that a little bit and just keep us healthy by tying us to nature as should be. I love the stories from folks who moved to Willowdale after around the 50s and the way they built their homes and the cedar timber, the milled lumber, and then these things get uncovered when the houses get turned into upgraded homes. There are so many beautiful materials and shutters with initials of the family, the Weaver family I knew. And I was panicking at one point in the early 2000s and taking pictures of everything. So we have this bucolic side that's very healthy and a lighter footprint on the ground. So yeah, cherishing Willowdale history is an important endeavor.
And we have a fairly strong historical society. They're very passionate and active. They were at one of our recent events, having a table there, and I think you're right. We do need to be more connected to our history. I love walking through the little cemetery beside Metro, the grocery store there. You just walk through it and you can almost picture the land before us and the history before us. So yeah, thank you for joining us tonight. And I think one of the friendliest multi-candidate, multi-party discussions. I hope that everyone who's watched and stayed with us for this time has learned more about our candidates as neighbors. And before we go, I'd like to just give you each a chance to say some parting words to your fellow neighbors. And then we will wrap up with a short intro from Ali Wahab, who is the candidate from the People's Party of Canada. Also, not a platform pitch, just a little short video about who he is because he couldn't join us today. But yeah, thank you. You all deserve a round of applause for kindness, giving accolades to each other, decorum. I wish this was the gold standard out there. So thank you for joining us. And for final words, we will start with Anna.
Well, let's also give a shout out to Daniel Lee that I had the pleasure to meet yesterday at the Bayview Common Association, Neighborhood Association picnic. And he's such a wonderful gentleman, clearly interested in everybody's best interests. So I suppose he had a schedule conflict today. Nice guy, though. I don't know what to say. This feels like a beginning and an end, and I would just, I look forward to meeting everybody more, and I'm serious about finding Wayne a home. So stay tuned, and maybe we can do that together.
Sure, we can talk after September 20th when the elections are over. I'd be happy to chat with you about finding a path for Wayne together.
All right.
And Hal?
So one of the things that I love about elections is that every time I run an election, I've come away with a friend that I've kept in touch with. So this is my third time. So I'm not sure which of you or both of you, Ali and Anna. Maybe it'll be Daniel. I don't know, or Al. I think that politics needs to be about community. It needs to be about neighbors, and not confrontational, but cooperative. So without going too much into how I think we should accomplish that, what I like about this is the exchange of ideas and the chance to meet people and learn things from other people. And what I would say to the people of Willowdale, and I'd like to quote Justin Trudeau, or sort of paraphrase Justin Trudeau, is that the people who vote for other parties aren't your enemies, they're your neighbors. And so we all vote for the people who think that can best represent our riding. but we all care about Willowdale and we all care about each other.
Thank you, Hal and Ali.
So it's just so great to know that we have so many great neighbors here in Willowdale. I have every confidence that every single one of us is running because we care about the future of our country, about the future and well-being of our community. And I think it would only do us all good if after this election is over, and we don't know what will happen, but we should definitely remain in touch because both Hal and Anna bring great insights and experience and expertise to the table, and each one of us can contribute to making sure that that Willowdale does remain a vibrant and impressive community going forward. So look forward to making sure that this is just the beginning and certainly not an end.
That is wonderful. Just the picture of everyone continuing the conversation beyond the elections is, I think, a perfect picture and a perfect hope for us that we can be more collective and inclusive in how we shape our community together. So thank you for those words, and best wishes to all of you as you pound the pavement. Thank you. I know this is late. I know you've been, knocking on doors and really working very hard. So thank you for doing that on behalf of democracy and on behalf of our community. And we're just going to close with a short video from Ali Wahab, the candidate from the People's Party of Canada. We did invite Daniel Lee to contribute, but unfortunately he wasn't able to make it. And you're right, Anna, he is a kind and caring person from my interactions with him in the past as well. So we are lucky to have such great candidates here in Willowdale. So let's watch the Al video together, and then we can all say goodbye together. Take it away, Sebastian.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for this moment to introduce myself to you via video, as I am unable to be there in person. My name is Al Wahab, and I'm a dedicated single father with over 30 years as a business owner and professional ballroom dancer, adjudicator, and examiner. I arrived in Willowdale from Alberta in 1989 after the passing of my father. I've had a number of addresses that include 10 Green Court, Hilda Avenue, Fountainblue Road, and Regatta Crescent. My son attended kindergarten at Avondale School, and both my mom and dad are resting at Senlac Cemetery. I've enjoyed seeing Willowdale grow from having just a few high-rises at Yonge and Finch to the bustling 24-hour community that it is now. I would like to see Willowdale continue to develop a stronger sense of unity, where neighbors know each other and could rely on each other in times of need, or join in celebration of special occasions. Willowdale for me is like a metropolitan city with the feel of the suburbs. The diversity of cultures bring with it a vast array of international cuisine that makes it impossible to pick a favorite. My hope is to participate in creating a better and safer community that offers security for our children, our elders, and ourselves. A place to live, work, play, and retire in comfort. Thank you, and have a great evening.
I just realized that is the father of one of my kids' classmates.
Oh.
And he is a ballroom dancer. He actually used to teach ballroom dancing, so it's really too bad he couldn't join us tonight. I would have loved to chat further with him. All right, well, thanks for fun, and yeah, we wish you the best, and we do hope that after the elections, maybe we'll have another chance to, circle back and have a chat about problem solving some things together. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Anna, Hal, and Ali, we wish you the best.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Amazing. All right. Thank you, Lily. Thank you to the candidates, and thank you to all of you for joining us for a special election edition of Meet Your Neighbor. Remember to vote this coming Monday, September 20th. And if you'd like to be a guest on a future episode of Meet Your Neighbor, you can connect with us at Sebastian at NeighbourLink North York, or Sebastian rather at neighbourlink.org. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, new neighbor. Good night, everyone.